Fearne has come to Carmarthen to find out Evan's fate following his second court-martial. She's meeting historian Professor Lois Bibbings.
Thank you, Lois. What I know is that my great-grandfather Evan was brought here to Carmarthen to serve a second sentence for being an objector. Do you know how long he would have been here?
Well, this is one of the original papers from Carmarthen prison.
OK, so Evan Meredith, 14th of December 1918. What's that date in reference to?
That looks like the date on which he was court-martialed and sentenced.
And then, so this here says disobeying a lawful command.
Yes.
So what would that have been?
So, yeah, something like not putting on a uniform, most probably. Something fairly mundane.
1 year sentence?
Yes, so his 6 months has now become second sentence, 1 year, and hard labour.
Oh, my goodness.
The prison regime at that time, as you might imagine, was fairly strict. There would be a single plank for him to sleep on. For the first 2 weeks of his sentence, he'd be lying on the plank with no mattress. After 2 weeks, he would have earned the right to a mattress. He'd have a stool, a small table, and a few pots for drinking and doing other things.
Got ya, Lois.
And he would be adhering to the silence rule. So he wasn't allowed to communicate with other prisoners. He wasn't allowed to speak. And that's what objectors found really the most hard.
So isolating. It's horrible.
But prisoners, if they behaved well, were automatically entitled to a 1/6 remission of sentence, so 2 months off, effectively.
Oh, right. Do you know if Evan did behave well and he got out early?
Well, if you have a look at the next column...
So it says remarks, and Evan's got quite a lengthy section in there.
I guess the really important date to look at is the temporary discharge, and to wonder why he was discharged at that point, because it doesn't matter either the end of his sentence or the usual remission period.
Yeah, it's quite a way before both. So do you know why?
Well, we do have a little bit more information in Evan's case. We're very lucky to have located a history of the Meredith family. And chapter 3 of that history is written by Evan, and it records what happened to him in prison in the First World War.
Wow. We had heard of hunger strikes in various parts of the country, and some of them were beginning to think in these terms. Not only that, I was in the best position to organise such a move. So I'm trying to get my head around this. So he was basically the person who started a hunger strike here for a group of prisoners. Am I right?
Pretty much. There have been hunger strikes in some of the prisons around the country from 1918 onwards, and they were largely about conditions in which the prisoners were being held. By this time, post the armistice, they tended to be about release dates.
By careful contact, I discovered that everyone was ready and waiting for me to fix the day. This I did on a day 1 week ahead so that I would be sure of contacting each man individually beforehand. The appointed day arrived and every breakfast was returned to the kitchen. Wow. Including my own. On the 4th day, the governor called in the evening to bring the news that I was to be released the next morning under the Cat and Mouse Act.
The Cat and Mouse Act had been introduced in 1913. Officially known as the Prisoners' Temporary Discharge for Ill Health Act, the government had passed it to tackle the hunger strike protests by suffragettes held in prison. Instead of force-feeding them, the Act allowed the early release of weakened prisoners who might be at risk of dying and their rearrest once they'd recovered. So when conscientious objectors like Evan began their hunger strikes in 1918, they were treated the same way.
Do you know if he was then rearrested after that temporary time of discharge?
We don't for sure, but we don't have any evidence that he was picked up again.
I will happily read through all of this. Thank you so much. I mean, what's clear to me already is, which I didn't factually know, is that he didn't want to go to war because he didn't want to kill anyone. It's that simple, really. I'm really getting a picture of who he was. You know, it's not necessarily jobs, location that you continue in that lineage. It's all of those traits and all of those beliefs, and they filter through in their own way. So it's really, really special to read his words.